The wind, a razor's edge from the far north, bites at the edges of the city. It's the kind of cold that doesn't just chill you. It seems to reach into your very bones and extinguish the last ember of warmth you thought you had. In an alleyway behind the bustling downtown library of Iowa City, a figure huddled under a worn blanket shivers, pulling the thin material tighter. The city hums with the quiet, unassuming rhythm of a heartland state. The muffled sound of cars on salted streets, the distant glow of apartment windows where families gather for the evening. But here, in the shadows, the silence is stark, punctuated only by the whistle of the wind and the rustle of a plastic bag caught in the gutter. This is a side of Iowa that few people see, or perhaps choose to see. It is a quiet crisis, a growing stain on the American heartland, a testament to the complex reality of being homeless in America. The quiet crisis, homelessness in America's heartland. The wind, a razor's edge from the far north, bites at the edges of the city. It's the kind of cold that doesn't just chill you. It seems to reach into your very bones and extinguish the last ember of warmth you thought you had. In an alleyway behind the bustling downtown library of Iowa City, a figure huddled under a worn blanket shivers, pulling the thin material tighter. The city hums with the quiet, unassuming rhythm of a heartland state. The muffled sound of cars on salted streets, the distant glow of apartment windows where families gather for the evening. But here, in the shadows, the silence is stark, punctuated only by the whistle of the wind and the rustle of a plastic bag caught in the gutter. This is a side of Iowa that few people see, or perhaps choose to see. It is a quiet crisis, a growing stain on the American heartland, a testament to the complex reality of being homeless in America. At first glance, the state of Iowa doesn't seem like a place that should have a homelessness problem. Its identity is etched in the fertile soil of its cornfields, the sturdy brick of its small-town main streets, and the manicured lawns of its suburban neighborhoods. It evokes an image of stability, community, and neighborly compassion. We are taught to believe that these are the places where people don't fall through the cracks, where a safety net, however threadbare, still exists. But the reality of 2025 tells a different, more unsettling story. From the bustling capital of Des Moines to the academic hub of Iowa City, the number of people without a stable place to call home is growing quickly and relentlessly. They are the unseen neighbors, living in their cars, drifting between the finite beds of overcrowded shelters, or seeking meager refuge in public parks and abandoned buildings. Their faces are a mosaic of stories, some etched with the scars of mental illness, others worn down by the grip of addiction, and many simply weathered by an unrelenting run of bad luck. The narrative of homeless in America is not confined to the sprawling tent cities of the coasts. It has found a home in the heart of the country, a place where it is often less visible, but no less devastating. A statistical echo and the shadow of COVID-19, the numbers, when they are finally counted, scream a different kind of silence. In January 2025, the point-in-time count for Polk County, which encompasses the state's largest city, Des Moines, revealed a shocking truth. Nearly 0 individuals were experiencing homelessness on a single night. This was not a minor fluctuation. It represented a 13% increase from the previous year, a statistical bump that felt more like a seismic shift. These figures marked the highest levels of homelessness the county had seen in 5 years, and the number of chronically homeless individuals had surged. It was a brutal reflection of a broader trend affecting communities across the state, a sign that the fragile balance between stability and crisis was tipping. Zooming out from the county-level data, the statewide picture painted an even more troubling portrait. National data compiled by organizations like the World Population Review estimated Iowa's total number of unhoused individuals at 2,700 in 2024. But perhaps the most chilling statistic, the one that truly awakens the conscience, came from the Iowa Economic Development and Finance Authority, a projection that nearly 0 households in the state would face homelessness in 2025. This wasn't a forecast of a mild storm, it was a warning of a full-blown hurricane. Among these 0 households, over 300 were families with children, a figure that should haunt a nation that claims to value family and child welfare. This heartbreaking statistic underscores a painful truth about homeless in America. It is not just an adult crisis, it is a profound failure to protect the most vulnerable among us. These numbers did not appear out of thin air. They were the predictable, heartbreaking fallout of a perfect storm of economic and social pressures, many of which were exacerbated by the arrival of the COVID-19 pandemic. Do you remember those early days of the pandemic? The surreal emptiness of the streets, the closed down stores, the way our most basic routines felt like distant memories? We all experienced the strangeness, the fear, but for those without a home, the pandemic wasn't just an inconvenience, it was a catastrophe. Suddenly, the fragile safety nets that had existed for years were ripped away. Libraries, recreation centers, and shelters, places where the homeless could stay warm, use a restroom, or simply rest without fear, closed their doors or severely restricted access. The isolation grew worse, and in that silence, addiction and mental illness found fertile ground to grow. National data confirmed it. Overdoses surged, especially among the unhoused. Without consistent access to treatment, many turned to substances as a desperate coping mechanism. The path to the streets, for many, was paved not with a sudden moral failing, but with the slow, crushing weight of despair that the pandemic intensified. Unemployment was another devastating blow. In just the first 2 months of the pandemic, Iowa processed over 300 new claims for unemployment. The wave of job loss hit low-wage workers the hardest, those who lacked the savings or family support to fall back on. When rent came due, eviction notices followed, and for thousands, the dominoes began to fall, leading them down a path they never imagined. The pandemic, for all its shared misery, created two very different realities. One where society slowly, painfully bounced back, and another where those who were pushed into homelessness were left behind, still waiting, still forgotten. The unforgiving climate and the shifting faces of crisis. For those who find themselves without a home in Iowa, the very land they stand on becomes an adversary. Iowa has a tough climate, and for people on the streets or in cars, that weather is more than uncomfortable, it is actively dangerous. The state seasons are not gentle transitions. They are tests of endurance. Winter is an enemy, a relentless force that can turn a simple night into a fight for survival. Temperatures frequently drop below zero, with wind chills that make the air feel like it's stealing your breath. The risk of frostbite and hypothermia becomes a daily reality. Shelters, while trying their best, often fill up quickly, their doors closing on those who arrive too late, or those who, for reasons of safety or fear of losing their few belongings, choose not to go at all. To be homeless in America during an Iowa winter is to live in a constant state of fear, your body a fragile vessel against the unforgiving cold. But summer brings its own kind of terror. Iowa's hot months are brutally humid, with temperatures climbing well into the 90s. For the unhoused, finding shade or a place to cool down is a constant struggle. Dehydration, heat exhaustion, and sunburn are ever-present risks. Without public cooling centers or open libraries, the options for escape are few and far between. Then come the storms, strong winds, sudden downpours, and the terrifying possibility of a tornado. While most people rush inside when the sky darkens, the homeless have no such luxury. A single storm can destroy a makeshift tent, soak clothes and blankets, and ruin the small cache of food that a person has managed to gather. The weather, in every season, serves as a stark, physical reminder of just how fragile life can be without a roof over your head. Perhaps most subjectively, the character of homelessness in Iowa is changing too. This is no longer just an issue facing men with addiction or mental health issues, although those remain pressing factors. Increasingly, it's affecting seniors on fixed incomes, struggling to keep up with rising costs, single mothers who can't make rent, and even working people who, despite holding down a job, are one unexpected bill away from eviction. The crisis has become quieter, more hidden in plain sight. People live in their cars, couch surf with friends and family, or silently endure frigid nights in makeshift tents. Unlike in urban centers where the crisis is highly visible and concentrated, Iowa's homeless are often invisible, dispersed, isolated, and underserved. They are not a spectacle. They are a silent, unspoken reality that exists on the periphery of our consciousness. This growing sense of hopelessness among service providers is palpable. They work tirelessly with limited resources, but the demand is simply outpacing their ability to respond. Shelters are full, affordable housing vouchers are limited, and mental health and addiction services are stretched thin. The system, many are starting to wonder, is designed not to help, but simply to manage a crisis that it cannot truly solve. In this light, Iowa becomes a microcosm of a larger national dilemma, a powerful challenge to the outdated idea that rural or Midwestern states are somehow immune to housing instability. The stories that haunt and inspire Rex, Kayla, and Bond. To truly understand the human cost of this crisis, we must move beyond the statistics and listen to the stories. These are the narratives that give the numbers weight, the faces that remind us of the people behind the problem. One of the most emotional stories from Iowa is that of Kayla Dale and her father Rex. Kayla, a vibrant 23-year-old business development specialist, had grown up in a loving, adoptive family, blissfully unaware of her biological father's whereabouts. When she was 13, she had a brief connection with him, a fleeting glimpse into a family she didn't know. Years passed, and she searched for him, the digital world offering no answers, until she eventually gave up hope. Then, in early 2025, a text from her grandmother changed everything. Attached was a photo from the Des Moines Register, a homeless man on the cover. It was Rex. The shock was immediate, the realization a punch to the gut. Kayla had been searching for years, and he had been right there, in the very city where she lived, living under a bridge. Through Joppa Outreach, a local homeless support group, she finally found him. The reunion was a torrent of emotion. Rex, his face etched with years of hardship, broke down in tears, calling himself a failure. He had spent years in isolation, believing he had lost everything. But Kayla, with a wisdom far beyond her years, reassured him, "I'm not mad or bitter. I know you did it because you care." She reminded him that he was not alone anymore, that he was loved. That moment under the bridge was more than a reunion. It was a powerful affirmation that even on the streets, forgotten by society, family can still find you. For Rex, a man who had felt completely isolated, that simple act of unconditional love meant everything. It is a story of personal tragedy and immense hope, a reminder that the human spirit can be incredibly resilient, even in the face of what feels like insurmountable odds. The story of Rex and Kayla is a powerful reminder of the dignity and love that can exist even in the most dire circumstances of being homeless in America. Another powerful story comes from a man named Bond, a 62-year-old who has been homeless since he was 17. His voice is steady but filled with the kind of sorrow that only a lifetime of struggle can create. He spent his entire adult life without an apartment, surviving harsh Iowa winters and deep neglect. He recounts how an encampment formed after the George Floyd protests, a refuge born of fear and necessity. "We were afraid of the police," he said. "We set this up to keep the women and children safe." For Bond, the camp isn't just shelter. It's a family, a community built on a foundation of shared struggle. He speaks of a time when the community stayed in a hotel, paying with donations, until they were evicted after looting by outside agitators. Bond's voice carries a weary skepticism of the government, a belief that it turns a blind eye to the homeless, even profiting off their arrests, trials, and imprisonment. "I've never had anything," he says, his words a quiet plea. "But I want these people to have homes, food, medical care. We're human beings." Despite his own suffering from diabetes, heart issues, and amputations, Bond dedicates himself to distributing supplies and watching over his makeshift family. His is a story of incredible resilience and profound compassion, a man who has lost everything but his humanity. These individual stories also shine a light on the complex relationship between addiction and homelessness. It's a common misunderstanding that addiction is the sole cause of homelessness. In reality, for many, addiction is the result of being homeless. When a person loses their job, their home, and their stability, the stress and trauma can be overwhelming. Substance use often begins as a way to cope with the brutal cold, the profound isolation, or the physical pain of life on the streets. It is a desperate attempt to numb the pain, to find a moment's escape from an unbearable reality. Framing addiction as a moral failure only deepens the problem, pushing people further into the shadows and away from the help they desperately need. The crisis we face is not one of morality, but one of public health. It requires a response grounded in compassion, education, and access to treatment and support, not judgment. This nuanced understanding is critical to addressing the issue of being homeless in America with both clarity and humanity. A cautious hope, solutions, and the blueprint for change. When faced with a crisis of this magnitude, it is easy to fall into despair. But in Iowa, there are those who refuse to stand still. A wide range of services exist to support people facing housing insecurity, and while access and availability vary, there is a coordinated effort to make them more effective. Organizations like Homeward, based in Polk County, play a central role working with shelters, health agencies, and nonprofits to provide both emergency housing and long-term solutions. One key strategy gaining traction is the Housing First model. The logic is simple but powerful. It's easier to solve personal problems, whether they be related to addiction, mental health, or employment, when you are not also fighting for survival on the street. The model focuses on giving people a stable place to live first without requiring them to meet conditions like sobriety or employment beforehand. It's a radical but effective idea that acknowledges the fundamental need for safety and dignity before any other progress can be made. Imagine the difference. A person moving from the constant fear of a makeshift tent to the quiet safety of a small apartment. From that foundation, they can begin to rebuild their lives. Perhaps the most ambitious effort in recent years is the Blueprint to Reduce Homelessness in Polk County 2025-2029, launched in May 2025. This plan brought together over 250 community stakeholders, public officials, nonprofits, health experts, housing developers, and faith groups, all committed to a single goal: to reduce homelessness. Its main goal is to achieve this through improved coordination, increased housing availability, and integrated support services. This is not just a policy paper. It is a declaration of intent, a roadmap for change. It is a testament to the belief that with planning, coordination, and long-term commitment, real solutions are possible. The hope is that this effort in Iowa will serve as a model for other states grappling with the growing challenge of homeless in America. Conclusion: a call to conscience. Homelessness in Iowa is more than just a statistic. It is a reflection of deeper issues that affect the entire nation. From rising housing costs and the lingering effects of the pandemic, to addiction, harsh weather, and a strained support system, the crisis continues to evolve in complex and heartbreaking ways. But it is also clear that Iowa is not standing still. Through collaborative plans like the Blueprint 2025-2029 and the expansion of supportive housing, the state is laying down the groundwork for change. Still, we must ask ourselves, is it enough? Ending homelessness in America requires more than temporary shelters or well-intentioned policy papers. It demands long-term investment, public will, and, most importantly, compassion. It asks us to see the homeless not as a problem to be managed, but as people to be uplifted. It is a reminder that the struggle of being homeless in America is not just an issue for big cities. It is spreading quietly, steadily, into every corner of the country. Iowa is not an exception. It is a warning. This isn't just Iowa's story. It's a part of the larger American story of how we care for each other when times get hard. It is a challenge to our collective conscience, because no one should be left outside in the cold, invisible, and unheard in a country as wealthy and capable as ours. The quiet crisis in Iowa demands our attention, our empathy, and our action. It is up to all of us to ensure this chapter leads to something better.